One of the biggest things that I get asked when I'm talking to people who are considering relocating to the Middle Tennessee is tornadoes. People are all the time asking me about how often do you get them? How bad are they? Is it something I should be really scared of? Because if you're not used to tornadoes, the thought of them can be really terrifying, especially with different videos and stuff that you can see online and in the media. So in today's video, we are diving into what you need to know about tornadoes in the Middle Tennessee area. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Martin and I am a local Nashville real estate agent and founder of the Caitlin Martin team, powered by 𝐋𝐈𝐊𝐄 Realtors, the Andrews Group. I specialize in working with savvy sellers who want to sell right and sell smart, as well as working with out-of-staters looking to relocate to the Middle Tennessee area. Now, if this is your first time stopping by my channel, thank you so much. Please feel free to click subscribe down below so that you are notified anytime I release new video content, which is every Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So in today's video, we're talking about all things Tennessee tornadoes. So a lot of times when I am having initial discussions with people who are considering moving to the area, almost without fail, they want to talk about the tornadoes. How bad are they? How often do we get them? So I figured when I continue to get that question over and over again, it's a really good idea to make a video about it, because if they're wondering about it, others are too. And so I did do a video about Tennessee tornadoes and flooding a couple of years back, and so you can take a look at that video. But actually in today's video, I'm going to be pulling up a map on the screen. So it's going to be the history of tornadoes in the Middle Tennessee area dating back to 1950. So we're going to be taking a look at that, because again, I can say all of the things that I'm going to say and it may still not maybe give you the comfort, but I feel like a lot of times if you're taking a look at those kinds of statistics, that can help bring it home. So the biggest thing that I tell people when we are talking about tornadoes in Tennessee is a lot of times we deal with the fear and the threat of tornadoes more than the actuality of the tornadoes. And a lot of times I feel like when people think tornadoes, you're thinking the Wizard of Oz, or you're thinking about the massive, like mile-wide twisters that you can see in Alabama or Mississippi or in Oklahoma, or the Midwest. And so I tell you, every time I go to say this, I'm like, Lord, please don't prove me wrong. I'm not trying to jinx anything, but that's not typically the type of tornado that we're going to see. We're not seeing those really massive EF4, EF5 tornadoes. Now, when we take a look at that map, you will see that those have hit the Middle Tennessee area before, but we'll take a look at what year it was, how bad it was, when it hit. So we'll take a look at that. But generally speaking, the ones that we typically deal with every year are going to be the EF0, EF1, maybe EF2. Now, one thing that I love to tell people, and a piece of advice that I love to give those who are moving here, is please do not rely solely on the local news stations to guide you through any potential severe weather. Because what they're going to do, especially if you're not used to tornado warnings, is they are going to hype up and sensationalize the impending severe weather. I love to tell people to go follow Nash Severe WX. They're on Instagram. They have a YouTube channel, which they will stream live during severe weather when they want to keep people updated. They're also on Twitter. That to me is one of the most reliable sources, because they will tell you, do you need to be concerned about this storm that's coming in? Or they will tell you, hey, it's not super concerning, we're going to keep an eye on it. But that way, to me, because what happened to us back in March of 2020, we did deal with one of our bigger tornadoes. It actually came in the middle of the night, and I think it actually caught a lot of the news stations off guard. And that was one where the tornado hit just a few weeks before the world shut down, so it felt like Nashville kind of got a double whammy in terms of March 2020. But in that, there were some fatalities in that storm. It really started and went through just north of downtown Nashville out towards Donaldson, Hermitage, Mount Juliet, and then it even picked back up and carried on speed and caused casualties out towards Cookeville, which is about an hour outside of Nashville. So that was one of the most devastating tornadoes that we had in recent memory. Now, myself, I have lived in the Middle Tennessee area for 10 years now. And so in that 10 years, the worst that I remember was in March of 2020. Now, if you are somebody that has never experienced a tornado siren, hearing that for the first time can be nerve-wracking, that's for sure. But again, I think we need to go ahead and take a look at that map, because do we deal with the threat of tornadoes? Absolutely. And here's the thing, because of our weather, it's not just a specific time of year. Like, yes, we can deal with severe thunderstorms during the summertime, spring and summer, but when we typically see some of that, some of the more scary weather come through is in seasons that you wouldn't expect. Like, we'll take a look, and there was actually a bad tornado that hit the area back in 1988. So that was a long time ago, but that actually hit on Christmas Eve. And so a lot of times, and again, I'm not a meteorologist and I'm not pretending to be, but in those situations, a lot of times it's because you get some of this warm air and it causes, instability in the atmosphere. And that's why, you can see tornadoes or tornado warnings in the wintertime. We've been known to have them in February. In fact, when I first moved to town, it was that first February that I was here that I heard my very first tornado siren. So let's go ahead, take a look at the map, and we'll kind of talk through some of these data, but just remember, if you are thinking about making a move, I often liken it, if you're coming from the California area, I often liken tornadoes, the threat of tornadoes to the potential of dealing with wildfires. They can be unpredictable and there can be the threat of it, but you'll also because we'll look at another chart, but you'll see that even though we deal with tornadoes, you'll take a look and see just how many fatalities. And you'll see that even though there can be more tornadoes that we deal with, from time to time, and again, this is going to vary year to year. A lot of times the fatalities for the most part are either zero or very low. And if you are somebody who is really concerned and you're saying, Caitlin, all of this is great, but I'm still really scared, there are options here in the Middle Tennessee area to either get a home that has a tornado shelter built into it, or you can hire a storm shelter company to come and place a storm shelter in your home. These are going to be big, fortified. I mean, it basically looks like a big steel box. They are fortified, not very big on the inside, but they are meant to withstand very strong tornadoes. So that is something I've had people look into, just because it can be a very real fear for people. And so there are options, there are things to look at if tornadoes are a concern. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at those maps of just where the tornadoes have been, what the strength has been. So we'll take a look at that. And again, hopefully this will help give you a little bit more peace of mind when it comes to the Tennessee tornadoes. Okay, so as you can see here, we're taking a look at the map of Tennessee. All of these dots indicate tornadoes that have hit the state since 1950. So you may initially see all the dots and be thinking, oh my gosh, that's far too much. But again, this is dating all the way back to 1950. And the neat thing about this map, and I will link it down below in this YouTube video, the neat thing about it is you can see these lines drawn between the dots, and these lines are going to show you the path that these tornadoes took. So again, if you are considering different areas to live, this map can be a really great tool for you to go in and play with and take a look at. The other neat thing about it is as we zoom in, now again, where you had all of these dots, if you take a look, you do have the F scale that's going to be down here in the corner. So you can see EF0 is that light blue, EF1 is green, EF2 is that kind of retro yellow color, EF3 being orange, EF4 being that red, and then EF5 being that really bright magenta color. So again, as you zoom in, you can start to see like, okay, it's not all tornadoes hitting all areas at all times. Now, the other neat thing about what this map provides you is you're able to click on this dot and see, okay, well, this was an EF2 and it hit back in 1957. So again, as you can start to do this research, and I will, like I said, link it down below because I do think this is important for you to just be able to explore, especially if tornadoes are a concern. But again, you can click over on the dot. Okay, so this was December of 2021, but it does tell you more about this tornado. And again, you got to remember that teal blue, that's going to be an EF0, but it does tell you a little bit more just about what happened. Now, if you scroll down, you can say, Caitlin, we've got a really big dot here from Franklin to Brentwood. So this is the tornado that I mentioned that hit on Christmas Eve back in 1998. And so as you start to explore these various dots, you can see that even though the Middle Tennessee area does get hit by tornadoes, you can see that, you know, as you're clicking on these, that's 1974. It's not like you're seeing, and again, that's back looking at December of 2021. But again, you're not seeing where it's, oh, okay, well, this hit in 2020 and this hit in 2021 and this was in 2019 and this was 2018. You know, that's back in 2000. And again, it does share more information just so you can really start to get an idea of just when they happened, how often they happened, what was the strength of them. Sometimes it'll tell you if there were any fatalities. And again, it tells you what time it happened. One of the threats in the Middle Tennessee area is, and this is what happened back in March 2020, was it hit in the middle of the night. So as you can see, this trajectory here from big orange dot to big orange dot, and it carried out past Lebanon, and it did head out towards Cookeville. So you can see that was the trajectory of what we got hit with back in 2020. Now, about 20 years prior, there was a similar tornado that took a similar path. And again, but you can see that was an EF1. And it hit, again, middle of the night. So that's why I say it's really great. You can get a storm radio for these storms that come in the middle of the night, but it is really great to follow Nash Severe Weather because these guys will live stream. So it's not like if you don't rely solely on the news that you're going to miss this coverage. These guys cover it too. So you can start to play around with this map. Again, it's going to be linked down below. Now, as you can see, the number of red dots, which are the EF4s, those are going to be, again, not as plentiful. But you can see one down here in Spring Hill. Let's take a look at that. So that was 2009. And it carried, it carried on for a short while. And then, up here towards Springfield, again, that's going to be back in 1970. Let's click a couple others. So this, it did strengthen the one that hit Nashville by the time it got out near to Cookeville, which is over here. You can see that's the EF4. But again, these big red dots, 1974. So again, play around with this. Take a look at the statistics. This can be really empowering to know. Obviously, as you can see by the dots on the screen, yes, we deal with tornadoes, but again, most of those dots you're going to see are the lower strength. That doesn't mean that there can't be fatalities with it or there can't be injuries or damage to homes. But again, you're not seeing a magenta on there just yet. And while there are the red ones, again, if you start to take a look at those statistics, they're going to be far more few and far between, and especially years apart versus these other ones that we deal with. So we've talked about fatalities a little bit, but let's actually pop over and take a look at the statistics in terms of fatalities with it as well before we wrap up. So with this website now, we're going to take a look at the total of tornadoes in all of the state of Tennessee versus West, Middle, and East Tennessee, and then we'll take a look at the fatalities that occurred with each of it. But this is on weather.gov. Again, I'll link this down below so that if you want to explore it in more depth, you're able to. So obviously here, this is going to give us the Tennessee tornado totals by year going all the way back to 1950. So as you can see, and again, please know when we're talking about tornadoes versus the fatalities that we're going to talk about, I am in no means minimalizing the value of anybody's life. The only reason I'm talking about this and showing you this is just so you can simply see that just because we deal with tornadoes, it doesn't necessarily equate to fatalities, because I know a lot of times if people think tornadoes, they think fatalities. And of course, they're concerned, could a tornado take them out? So just please keep that in mind. I'm not minimalizing anybody's life because everybody is valuable. So as you can see, you start to look at this middle column and you say, okay, well, Middle Tennessee, they can deal with more tornadoes than either West Tennessee or East Tennessee if you're looking at these totals by year. One thing to keep in mind, though, is as they're pulling the stats, what they're looking at is the total top of Middle Tennessee all the way to the bottom of the state where it meets Alabama. But that doesn't, that's going to be a wider area than what the Middle Tennessee real estate market MLS is. So that's something to consider, because further south in the Middle Tennessee area, you can run into more rural areas where you can see more tornadoes. So as we're taking a look at this, you can see that 2021 and 2020, those were heavier tornado years. But then 2022, the Middle Tennessee area only saw 1. We have seen 13 this year, but again, that doesn't necessarily mean the true Middle Tennessee MLS real estate area. So you can take a look at this and just kind of see what these, tornado totals look like. But then we're going to come down and take a look at these Tennessee tornado deaths. So again, not minimalizing the value of anybody's life by any means. But if you're taking a look at this, you can see that the last couple of years, tornadoes have not equated to any deaths in the Middle Tennessee area. Now you do see this big 24 number. Of course, that's going back to 2020, which is that big tornado that we saw that we've talked about, especially when we were looking at the map. And so again, you start to go back down. And then the next time there was another big number was back in 2008. There was one that hit causing 10 fatalities in 2006. But then we really started to go tracking all the way back towards 1950. And then the biggest one that we've seen in the Middle Tennessee area in terms of total fatalities was back in 1974. And again, this is not me minimalizing anybody's life, because everybody's life is very valuable. So again, as we take a look at this, we want to see zeros across the board, right? Because even one life is one life too many. But the whole goal in showing you this, again, not to minimize anybody's life that was lost, the goal of this is to show you that just because we deal with tornadoes in the Middle Tennessee area, it does not always equate to loss of life. And the other thing to keep in mind is these deaths are not necessarily because the tornado ran into the house and took someone's life. It can be from things like the tornado, causing a tree to fall, and then it falls on somebody and causes a fatality. So, again, I'll link this down below just so you can take a look, but I do feel like this can be helpful for people, because a lot of times if people are thinking about tornadoes, they can think about the fatalities associated with it, which of course can make people feel fearful for their own lives when it comes to tornadoes. But as you can see, even though you can deal with a ton of tornadoes in a year, that doesn't necessarily equate to fatalities. And again, we do have we do have things to help safeguard us here in the Middle Tennessee area, whether that's a home with a tornado shelter or adding a tornado shelter. There are ways around it. But again, just because we deal with them does not mean that it always equates to loss of life. Now, we can deal with things that cause damage in other ways, damage to vehicles, damage to homes. But, a lot of times those can be real minimal as long as there's no loss of life. So I'll link this down below. Feel free to take a look at it and also the other map. But hopefully these are helpful and can kind of give you a more full picture in terms of what it looks like to live in the Middle Tennessee area and have that potential threat of tornadoes. But again, yes, we have them. Yes, we deal with the threat of them. There are ways to safeguard yourself. And a lot of times we're actually dealing more with straight line winds than what we are actually dealing with tornadoes. You know, straight line winds are going to still potentially cause roof damage, shingle damage, can cause trees to fall. So those are still not things to take lightly, but we can tend to deal with the reality of straight line winds more than tornadoes. But again, I'll link all of these down below just so that you guys can explore it on your own, and hopefully this can help give you a little bit more sense of security when it comes to the idea of maybe moving to the Middle Tennessee area and having to deal with the reality of possibly being faced or dealing with the threat of tornadoes. So as you can see from those charts and those statistics, you can see, yes, we do deal with tornadoes. It's not that we are an area that's immune to them. It can certainly happen, but as you can see, a lot of times the deaths associated with it is either none or very, very low. So again, what we're dealing with is not typically those massive ones that you're seeing. And really, even though we don't necessarily have to deal with tornadoes all the time, one thing that we do see from our severe weather is something called straight line winds. So that can still cause roof shingle damage. It can still cause trees to come down. So you do have to be really careful there, because unfortunately with straight line winds, it has toppled some trees and caused some fatalities as well. But again, you know, it's just part of the weather that we deal with here in the Middle Tennessee area. Again, I wouldn't say it's a reason to not live here. And in fact, a lot of people haven't let it stop them from moving here, but it is really important. It's something to consider if you are thinking about making a move. So if you are thinking about relocating to the Middle Tennessee area and you want to talk more about our weather, or if you want to talk more about what it's like to live here, you're thinking about planning a trip here soon, please do not hesitate to reach out. Myself, my team, we would love to help you. Again, my name is Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.